we're talking to a computer. But it's awesome. So hello. Hi. And yeah, another reason we're here, other than the high tide, low tide, a guiding, helping hand with a friend. I mean, totally.
Friends guide bipolar disorder.
I didn't write the book, obviously. They did that.
It took me a long time to get.
Yeah. And you did an amazing job. So how about first, let's have a huge round of applause for Frank. And before I introduce them and they come up on stage, I wanted to again say that we're also here for fundraising for Family Hope. For those of you who aren't sure what it is or new to the room before this first announcement, Family Hope offers guidance and help for friends and family of people with mental illness. They help navigate through clinical social work, and they help through group meetings and classes and online discussion boards, and they do an amazing job with that, supporting and helping and talking, which is one of the biggest things you can do for crisis prevention and everything. So without further ado, I'm going to come around with a basket for donations for them. Please, please give generously. As much as you can afford, that would be amazing. Get ready for me, but also take this time and welcome, please, the co-founder and director of Family Hope, Anne Fran, and the co-founder, Donna Betts. I gotta make sure I get that right, Family Hope, and then Fran to the stage to have a discussion about things. So yeah, thank you.
When I started thinking about, actually Ace was the one that said, hey, why don't you have a book bank here? And as soon as she said it, I immediately thought of Donna Betts and Family Hope, because, you know, what better way to just kind of get things out into the world and people talking about things that are difficult to talk about. And so we did it. So we've been connected for a while. I think that we will start off with backgrounds. Sure. Okay. Oh, you want me to start? Yeah, you first.
Well, my name is Donna Betts, and when my oldest son, Josh, was in his teens, he developed depression. And it was really no big deal. It was seasonal depression. We all a little depressed in the wintertime around here. And medication helped him tremendously in the winter, and then in the summer he didn't need to take it. By the time he was 23, it had really developed, and he ended up by moving back home with me. He quit his job, he dropped out of college, and he was sleeping in his room all the time. And I knew something was wrong, so as a mom, I'm going to call and I'm going to make an appointment for him. And what I found out was because he was an adult, I couldn't make any appointments for him. I couldn't make a doctor's appointment, I couldn't make a therapist appointment. He would have to call himself. And I said, well, he can't even get out of bed. How is he going to call for himself? And the woman said, you know, I'm really sorry, you cannot make an appointment for him. And I said, what are we supposed to do? His friends are worried, we're worried, we don't know what we're looking at. Isn't there somebody or an organization out there that could send somebody over to talk to us so that we know what we're looking at? There's got to be something that we can do. And the woman on the phone told me, she said, no, there isn't anything like that out there, but you can call us here 24 hours a day. And I remember getting off the phone, and I remember crying, and I thought, what are we supposed to do? Sit here and watch our son die? And that's what happened. He died by suicide a couple months later. Sorry.
I know that every time you share that story, it's hard. It's like the same feelings are still there, and the nonsensical part of it is still there.
Josh died 7 years ago. And then a couple of years after, I thought that woman had to be wrong. There has to be an organization out there that works with family members. And so I started doing my research. I wanted to get involved. And I found out that there wasn't anything out there, and that's why I founded Family Hope. And that's what we do. We give families that help that we needed so desperately at that
time. My story happened, I guess, when I was born, but we won't do all that. I had a chaotic childhood after I left high school and was in a cult. After that, I was in an abusive marriage. And I had a tendency to have a 7-year thing going on. In 1994, I had gotten miraculously, I had earned a degree in electrical engineering and was at the actual top of my field when I was diagnosed with major depression. And so that began a cycle of all kinds of medications for antidepressants. And 10 years later, I got re-diagnosed as bipolar. And the worst thing that you can do with someone who's bipolar is give them antidepressants. That's like the #1. Don't want to do it. So you want to get the diagnosis correct in the beginning. Because I can't tell you the amount of suffering I had during that 10-year period of time where I was completely frustrated by all the side effects and going back and forth and something would work and then it stopped working and it was just horrible. In a lot of ways, my illness was less damaging to me than the side effects of the medications. So when I finally got diagnosed as bipolar, this was actually after I went to the woods of Maine for a year in a cabin on 189 acres with no running water, no electricity. I would eat grapes and garlic. I was just trying to get to like the baseline. And I also had chronic fatigue and I had fibromyalgia, so I wanted to be the baseline. And so I slept 20 hours a day, and so it was a very strange experience, but one that has served me to be very valuable over the course of the years since then, because the one thing that I know that matters, I got it. No matter what else is going on, I know that there's a spark inside me that wants to live. And the more that I can fan that, then the less the illness has its way with me. It's not always easy. But so anyway, so I've been doing the bipolar thing. I have a big support network. Different people that I need for different things, and that's just the way that it is. And if any of those things fall apart, it becomes difficult for me to function. That's kind of what I have been suicidal many, many times, and we've gone right to that edge. Put out all my bills, line them up, count them, and I can say that even though it may get worse before it gets better, the more you're able to step away from that edge. And the only way that I see in looking back is that there were people who stopped me, whether if it was a smile or it was a hello. It didn't have to be anything big and dramatic and therapize me for an hour or something like that. But kindness is really lacking in this world, so that's the thing that I focus on most.
And I think one thing that Fran said is how long it took for the doctors to diagnose her. That's really typical. That's what we hear with a lot of our families. Maybe the diagnosis at first is bipolar, and then years down the road, oh no, it really is schizophrenia. And then years down the road, it changes again. And I think that's because mental illness is a brain illness, and we don't know enough about the brain. And medication works differently in different people, and that's why it takes so long for doctors to find the correct medication. And there are lots of side effects, like Fran said. Fran's one of the lucky ones where her regimen is working for her. And I have to say, Fran collects friends like most people collect shoes. She's got them all over the place. and it's really wonderful. When I was reading their book, the chapter that they just read from, the S word, that one really, I had a hard time with that one, because it's about suicide. But it's also because they talked about Marty allowing Fran to have those feelings, and for him to know that he really can't stop her if she really wants to do that. And correct me if I'm.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He kind of gave me this little cushion, you know, and I was like, oh, Brad, you can sit over here. You don't have to sit on the rocks over there. You can like, that's kind of this little cushion.
Well, and then you guys talked about how with online, on Facebook, when people were trying to stop the other woman, they were doing it for themselves. And I gotta tell you, that's exactly what I would do. You know, we were talking earlier that I don't want to lose Fran. I don't want her to die by suicide. It's very scary for me and very emotional. However, the two of them have come to this place where Marty accepts Fran for who she is. I mean, so much better than I am, Marty. I mean, it's just, you know.
Well, you know, he's able to really navigate with me all the storms that I go through. Because it's not my fault. It's not like I'm, you know, I have bad character and I'm, you know, wanting to kill myself because I'm just a lowly person. That's not true at all. I have an illness, a brain illness, that takes me there. And so Marty's being able to stay present in the midst of the shit, in the bad shit that I'm sitting in. And he's present there with me, and it's just, there's a lot of trust. And that's why, you know, that's why I challenged him to write the book, because, you know, the perspective needed to be his. Because there's plenty of us that have talked ad nauseum about our issues and our experiences, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. I think that that's an important part also. But I know that I didn't want to write my story, you know? And what a great vantage point to go, oh my God, I went through all of this with this friend, and things worked out, you know? So that other people can adopt some of the same, it's all principles, you know, there's nothing new under the sun that we're doing, but there's just a way of being in the world, and it can really help people. And if you could help someone that was suicidal, wouldn't you want to?
But the kind of care also being friends, we're friends, but I don't put as much time as Marty does into the friendship. I know it sounds really bad, but being there for somebody else.
You're there perfectly in the way that I need you to be. You don't need to be a martyr. I've got a martyr.
Right.
That's why I need all these friends, because everybody wins.
Right. But it's the same for anybody else. Anybody else who knows somebody who lives with a mental illness, just be there as much as you can. And I think that's why their book is so powerful, because there are little pieces that you can take from it for yourself. I just think it's wonderful. I really applaud both.
I think the other thing is that it's honesty. I think a lot of times people want to do good for somebody, but it's from a dishonest place. You know what I mean? They're not really.
No, what do you mean? Explain.
What I mean is, you know, because I mean, I've done this before. You know, it's like, okay, so a friend of mine is like pissing me off or whatever, but I don't tell her I'm mad at her. You know, and it comes out sideways in some other way. When I can be honest with her about the feelings that I'm having, and I can open dialogue to be able to move to a higher ground of honesty, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the majority of families that we work with. We get phone calls from parents of adult children. And most of the adult children are between 18 and 30, and they're male. And just thinking about what the families try to do for them, a lot of the families that we work with, their adult child doesn't want to get help. So it's very different from what Marty and Fran have. When you love somebody who doesn't want to get help, what do you do? And once our kids turn 18, now they're legally adults, and we have absolutely no right to know what's going on with them. If they're seeing the doctor, are they on medication? What are those medications? When are their appointments? We want to help our kids, so we want to go and get them to their appointment. We want to get their prescription for them, but we're not allowed to know that at all. And that's where the difficulties happen for people who love somebody with mental illness. These guys are very open about it, and that's one of the things that makes it so beautiful.
It really is, it's remarkable. Our story is quite remarkable. I wish that everybody could have a Marty.
There's only so much of me to go around.
Marty helps a lot of other people too, because he's been trained in some things in the UK, and so he's just been interested. This is something that he's interested in, so.
Well, that's something, yeah, I mean, that's something that's come out of our friendship, though. And specifically from the challenge that you gave me to write the book, for us to write the book together, was that I thought, well, sure, I've learned, I know a lot about you, about how we work our friendship, but we're not just writing the book for each other, we're writing it for a wider audience, so I'd better learn a few things. And I better get a bit of a wider perspective. So yeah, I've taken some courses and I've done some workshops and I've talked with a lot of people. So when you say Marty helps a lot of people, I don't know. I know a lot of people. I have a lot of people who feel safe talking with me at different times about what they might be going through, and that's a great privilege for me. I mean, it astounds me sometimes that that's the case, but how much help? Well, you'd have to ask them, but it's a huge positive kind of impact in my life. And I think, as in the piece that I read just before, I think out of our friendship, not just the two of us, but of all this wider perspective as well, it certainly helped me. So, when we're talking about the book, when we're talking about offering something to people who might have a friend or a family member with mental illness, and let's be honest, we all do, whether we are kind of aware of it or not, we all do, given the statistics, that we just need to kind of like just be open to the conversations, because that can be immensely helpful. I think, as Fran said there, when we're talking specifically around the suicidal thing, that's a very scary concept, word, that's why I said the S word. It's a scary thing, but fundamentally we're all just people. It's two people, Fran and I, or another friend and I, or whatever. It's just two people coming together and sharing what's going on for them at that point in time. So that's this, okay, it can get a bit more, it might get a little more than that, but that's where you want to start from.
And Marty alluded to statistics. So 1 in 5 people lives with a mental illness, which means 1 in 5 families are affected by mental illness. In the state of Maine, that's 200,000 families who are affected by mental illness. 200,000 just in the state of Maine. That's a lot of families. So in a family, in the state of Maine, a family is an average of 2.4 people. More than 400,000 people in the state of Maine are affected in one way or another by mental illness. We just don't realize how prevalent it is and how normal it is. It's there and it's not going away, and we need to talk about it more. We need to help get rid of the stigma that surrounds it and talk about it. And this book is one of the ways of doing it. And I also wanted to say to both of you, I think the fact that you're 3,000 miles away is really good, because you're reaching a far broader audience than you would if you both lived here in Portland.
Oh, you're kidding me? We drive ourselves nuts if we were in the same county. No, I do have to say, Donna and I met at the It Takes a Community It's a once-a-year organization that has created a space to, open up stigma and silence and break some of that stuff down. And that's where we initially met. And when I met her, I was like, mania, wow, this person. I had all these great ideas, but they all treated me with respect. Here I am, just kind of like acting out and thinking, I was just a cat's meow.
I just thought you were a very exuberant person.
And so that's where we met, and a bond was really created because we're doing the same thing. We're trying to shift this big dinosaur of mental illness institution thing, because it's now just invisible. It's not that it's not there, it's just invisible, and that's what stigma and the silence it does a lot of, in some ways, a lot more damage, because it's not being open, it's not being talked about, they're afraid to talk about it, because, someone's going to lock them up, or I don't know, things like that. It's just very difficult. So I think things have shifted since we met.
I think things are shifting too. Family Hope is trying to shift the conversation from not only the person living with mental illness, but to the family members. That our clients are the families, and nobody else is doing what we're doing. There's a huge gap there. Because families, whether it's the parents, siblings are always affected, and friends, we all need support. Family, especially parents, they don't want to talk about it. They can't talk to their neighbor about it because the neighbors look at them like, well, there must be something that you did that your child turned out this way. And when Josh was sick, one of my own family members said to me, there's nothing wrong with Josh, it's your parenting style. That's hurtful. And that's the reality of how we see mental illness in our society, and it has to change. And it's going to change by books
And
like this.
And we had a nice brunch one time at Taylor's, I remember fondly, a few years ago.
Yes.
And we're just shooting the shit, talking about mental illness. That's just such a normal thing for us to do. It's not like a problem. But what came out of that was that we wanted to incorporate more music, art, theater. Like, the only way anything changes in society is if it's by the arts. Political, doesn't necessarily change anything for the good. But the arts are a vehicle that could really make some shifts change. And so last year you had Tim Sample. This year we had our event, our fundraising event, and we call it an evening of Black therapy. Because what we do is so serious, we just want to be able to have a lighthearted event. So we had Tim Sample, who is for those of you who don't know, he's a Maine staple. He's a humorist, and he came and he did a show for us. And what a lot of people don't know is that one of his daughters lives with a serious mental illness. And his daughter is in and out of the hospital. And he and his wife have been dealing with this for years and years and years. And he spoke very, very well, I thought, about his experiences and how can you be a parent with a child who lives with mental illness. And then this year, we had a panel first. And we have our event at Wainfleet, and I don't know how many of you know, they had 2 suicides last year. Wainfleet School is a K through 12 school, and 2 of the girls in the high school died by suicide, one in the fall and one in the spring. So we talked about it. We talked about mental illness. And then after that, we had an improv group, Running the Scissors, who made us laugh. So that's one thing that we do, and we're going to continue to do year after year, is just to remind people this is really serious, but it's also really important that we laugh. Yeah, to help lessen the line between, the ill and the well, or whatever. To just be able to have conversations and not have it be like an emotionally horrible experience. It's like, this is what I deal with, and how you know, in our friendship, how can we include my illness in it, because it's
It
here.
has to be included.
It's not,
It's part of who
yeah, but I
you
mean,
are.
there were so many friends for so many years where I had to just slice off half of myself, because they would not tolerate anything that was less than a normal friend, you know. And I think a lot of people experience that. That's why they isolate, and that's why they, you know, tend to just be loners and, you know, not come out, not talk to anybody, because they have this huge repertoire of vocabulary, but nobody to connect with.
Yeah, there's an older woman that I know, and she tells a story about when she was a little girl. Her father died, and it was the time when you had a wake in the home. And she remembers people were coming in and out of the home, or out of that home, and people were whispering, and they were saying, "Did you hear about how he died? Oh my God, that's so terrible." Her dad died from cancer. Back then, there was such a stigma around cancer. Now, everybody talks about it. It's no big deal. We have bumper stickers that say, "Save the tatas." I mean, come on. And so my hope is that, and hopefully not too far into the future, we'll be able to talk about mental illness the same way. It's going to be normalized, so many people have it. So that's my greatest hope.
Yes, Phil?
A couple of things. One, I want to thank all of you for being able to put it out there. Donna, thank you for concentrating on families, because as someone who grew up with mental illness running rampant in their family and never knowing, still not knowing how to deal with it and be as supportive as I wanted to, instead of running away from it. Thank you for that. The other thing that I'm wondering if you have ever done anything in schools, especially in high school, where being a high school teacher, I see a lot of kids that are either dealing with their own mental illness or they're dealing with family members with mental illness. And if we can get them to talk about it, we're kind of lucky, but we don't. We see it coming out in lots of other different ways. That is your organization doing anything around outreach to schools?
Yes. Our organization is young, we're 4 years old. Guidance counselors and the social workers in the school are definitely on our outreach list. We have lots of phone calls from guidance counselors. The parents just didn't know what to do. Unfortunately, there are a fair amount of parents who are in denial. So when their child starts behaving in different ways, it's hard to tell, is it some sort of a mental illness or is it a behavior problem? So parents really struggle with that. And I think it's, especially in the teen years, it's a little difficult to know the difference, but I think the importance is to get your child to a doctor, first and foremost. Yes, we do, we are reaching out into the high schools, and actually, not this Monday, but the following Monday, Cape Elizabeth is having a few of us come and talk to their parents about what's going on and let's bring this out into the open. Unfortunately, we're losing too many high school kids to suicide, so we need to open it up. We definitely need to get into the schools. Anytime I'm invited, Phil, I will go. Are there any questions?
Has anything changed since the time your son died, committed suicide, that would allow you today as a parent to get help for him, whereas you were not allowed back in that time? Has anything changed?
That has not changed. As a parent, you can't make an appointment for your adult child. It's still, yeah, and I've talked to some providers and I said, why don't you let us set up the appointment, and if we can't get in there, charge me a no-show fee. That's what they normally do, but that's not on the horizon right now. But there are things that families can do. A lot of times, because our children are sick, the relationship with the parents is not the best. For instance, telling your child who is ill and just sleeping all the time to get off their butt and go get a job is not helpful. And that's what I did with Josh. I said, all you have to do is go outside and get some sunshine and you're going to be fine. That's not helpful. So the program that we have is called the Family Support Navigator Program. And we have a social worker on staff who goes and meets with the family. And we talk to them about what are things that they can do. Let's build that relationship. What are the communication things that you can do? What do you not say? And what are some things that you can say? So we really encourage families to change the way that they're acting or reacting to their adult child. It's difficult, and families are often in denial. And they don't understand that this is a lifelong illness. You don't cure it, but you certainly can treat it. And parents they just don't want that. There's like a grieving process that happens because when our kids are little, we have all these great, they're going to get married, I'm going to have grandchildren, they're going to have this great job, and then our kids get sick. And that's not going to happen a lot of times, not all the time. So there's a grieving process that has to happen, but you have to accept that your child is sick before you can actually walk through all those steps. It's a journey. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm really sorry that there is no way that a parent can change that. That there is no legal route that can change the laws to make it possible for this indication.
Not yet.
This indication of mental illness.
Right. Not yet, but it's going to take advocacy from people, from just regular people, to really start getting involved. There are different organizations. There's an organization called NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and they do more legislative stuff. So for us to get ourselves educated and more involved with these organizations is crucial, and that's how things are going to change.
My mother and my family is from New York State. My sister is both physically and mentally handicapped. And my mother, who is 89 years old, cares for her still. And she is able to make all my sister's appointments, deal with the doctors, all of that stuff. So I'm asking, is it a state-by-state situation, or is something else happening?
I think that's a great question, and that's because it's reminded me of something. You can make an appointment if your adult child signs a release. Without that release, you can't. I don't know what it's like in New York, to be really honest with you, but here in the state of Maine, unless a release is signed, you can't make an appointment. You can't know what's going on. And it makes it very difficult. And to make it even more difficult, you have to have a release signed by your adult child for every single provider they go to. Therapist, PCP, psychiatrist, whoever it is, you have to sign all these releases. And they can revoke that release at any time. So when they're well, maybe they'll sign a release. And then when they become symptomatic, we've seen that they'll pull that. And that's the time when they need their family the most. So building those relationships really, that helps that a lot of times.
There's also different levels of guardianship.
Right.
So if you are your child's guardian, even after they are an adult, you can make those kinds of
Right.
plans and get that information information. Still have to sign releases.
Yeah, and with, a lot of times, these kids, their illness doesn't really develop till they're in their early 20s. We see that a lot. We see a lot of our parents will say, he went off to college and he was fine, and then all of a sudden we're getting a phone call from the college and they want us to come and get him. From what I understand, mental illness is a lot like cancer. It's possible, it runs in families, but not everybody is going to develop it. But when there's a major, they call it a trauma, but it's more of a major event, like going to college, it can trigger it. So maybe these kids had a predisposition and then went to college, and it's very stressful. And then it develops, and then the family's just like, he was never like this when he was a teenager. What's going on?
Stress is something that tends to jack up my mania like nobody.
Yeah.
They'll just,
And then there's a lot of these kids also have substance abuse because they're not feeling well. And then like Josh, he was smoking weed every single day. And he thought it was making him feel better, but in actuality, it was making things worse. Does anybody have any other questions? Marty, do you have anything to add?
Oh, sorry, just coming off mute. Not really, not specifically, other than just to really kind of like reiterate the message that's coming out from the questions, the brilliant questions that are coming from our audience there. It's like the prevalence and really just how complex society really makes these things, and how much harder it can make it for families in particular. I mean, that's obviously your area of expertise, but for friends too. So the advocacy that you mentioned through the likes of NAMI and other organisations, I mean, there's a lot of anti-stigma and advocacy organisations over here in the UK too. I think that it does behove us all to actually step up and get involved in whatever way makes most sort of sense to us, whether that's fundraising or just talking, just talking about it and spreading the word. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
thanks.